So if you haven't noticed already, I bloody love ruggers, and loving something or someone makes you want to do things to please that person/thing, which got my mind to ponder, why isn't rugby more of a globally beloved mainstream sport? What's missing? What's holding it back? And what can be done to enhance it as a global force? So I decided to use the most potent of research tools, the interweb, to try and find out what the actual stats are for the most popular sports in the world, and where does rugby fit into that? Well, the actual results left me both underwhelmed and confused. I will dub this emotion whelmed, because according to the stats provided by the study done at worldatlas.com, it states that rugby is the 9th most popular sport in the world. Which I don't know about you, but I thought, that seems fair, maybe even a little bit higher than I thought. Considering we beat golf, suck it golf, I'm only bitter because I'm actually horrendous at golf, don't judge me. But as I looked up the rankings, my initial upbeat mood turned sour as I discovered that rugby union had been beaten by such sports as baseball, volleyball, table tennis, and hockey. This shall not stand. How can this be the case? Why is this the case? And this case sucks and I don't want it anymore. But I'll give you the cold hard stats of the whole top 10 to add some much needed context to my outrage. 10th is golf with 450 million fans, 9th is the greatest sport in the world, rugby union, with 475 million fans, 8th is baseball with 500 million, 7th is basketball with 825 million fans, 6th is table tennis with 875 million fans, 5th is volleyball with 900 million fans. Jesus, how? Pervs. 4th is tennis, which seems fair, with 1 billion fans. 3rd is field hockey with 2 billion fans. 2 billion. 2nd is cricket with 2.5 billion. And 1st with 4 billion fans is of course football or soccer if you're awful. So despite my initial ignorant rage, I needed answers, and the ones I found shed some light on possible factors that limit rugby's range of influence. I had a look at the sport's primary spheres of influence. It showed that rugby's main sphere of influence is the UK and Commonwealth, whereas sports like football, tennis, table tennis and basketball are played globally, with 7 of the top 10 being embraced in North America, which is a massive bonus in terms of numbers of people and fans. As when America likes something, exposure goes through the roof. That's just the way it is. Look at how many people love the MLS in America and how many fans they have of that competition. With soccer just getting into the top 5 sports in America recently, that is the influence. So I knew now the limits of the game's reach due to the game being spread by the English through the Commonwealth, and there were just some places it didn't sink itself into, but I was still thinking, what else does rugby have holding it back? And admittedly, it didn't take me that long to make a list, so here goes. Number 1. It's too complicated. Now, I've touched on rugby being slightly too complex for its own good on this channel, but I want to go into a little bit more detail. So if I'm trying to explain a sport to someone who doesn't know much about it, the fewer the rules, the better, as people in general don't like learning new things, and the burden of learning a new game is hard enough without having to explain why someone must release the tackler before they go for the ball. And I understand that the concept of rugby being a game where you have to get the ball from one end of the pitch to the other whilst only being able to pass backwards could be argued as simple, but then I think to myself about the follow-up questions about tackling, rucks, mauls, lineouts and kicking, and my head just hurts. So bottom line, rugby union is complicated, and it's the big advantage that its brother, rugby league, has in countries like Jamaica where the game is growing. Less rules, simple, violent and fun. That's a cause that's easy to get behind. And when you compare explain the rules of rugby to other sports, you really see the difference. Sports like volleyball, football, tennis, basketball, golf all have their complications, but it's probably limited to about 2 rules maximum compared to rugby's many different technicalities. Number 2, there's too many players on the field. Now, this is my own theory, but what do most of these sports in this top 10 have in common? They don't have loads of players on the pitch at the same time while the game is being played. Golf 1, baseball 1 with the bat and 1 pitching, the rest fielding, basketball 5 on each side, table tennis 2, normal tennis 2, volleyball 6 on each side, with field hockey and football being at what I believe to be the limit of 11 aside, with hockey having 6 subs you can use and football usually only allowing 3. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is that I believe this allows for more opportunities for individuals to shine, and why that's important is superstars are the reason that sports get popular. They are the role models, the icons, they are the marketing tools, they are the gold mine, the lightning in the bottle, the thing that takes the sport from ground level to the stratosphere. And if you don't believe me, here's my example. Rugby's only real superstar, like real superstar. Not someone who's a big deal in their sport, no, superstar. Like your grandma doesn't follow the sport but still knows who this person is, level superstar. Jonah Lomu single-handedly put the game of rugby on the map and turned the game professional. It was always a question of when rather than if, but Jonah's superstardom and superhuman antics at the 1995 World Cup sped up the process dramatically. Now, here's a question. Can you name a rugby superstar who has reached similar levels of superstardom? Wilkinson in 2003? Not really, he was well known, but not Jonah level well known. And that's my point, it's hard to stand out in rugby. First of all, you have 30 people on a field at once, on a field that's smaller than a football pitch, with 16 players on the bench, so that makes it hard enough to stand out from the crowd. Then you factor in the game going professional, meaning the playing standards got better after that point. Techniques and training methods got better, players got bigger, meaning the gap between the world class and the regular players has shrunk, and in a contact sport that is huge. Nemanja Nandolo is twice the player Jonah Lomu was in his prime. If the two were compared against each other both in their prime, Nandolo would be the better player easily. But in today's game he couldn't be as big a star as Lomu, because despite his size it's impossible to be as dominant as Lomu was, as the players are so much bigger and stronger now and have better tackle technique. All these factors together just don't add up to an environment that helps breed individual superstars. Not like basketball, baseball, cricket, tennis, golf. Those sports are basically subconsciously built around creating moments where an individual can stand out from the crowd and make their mark. Brian Lara and Tiger Woods were such big stars and such a part of their respective games brands that they literally had the games named after them. I had Tiger Woods golf and Brian Lara cricket. And you know who had the best game named after him? Jonah Lomu. In conclusion and summary, superstars are branding and marketing gold dust for taking sports to the next level. We don't have any anymore, and that needs to change. The closest thing we currently have to a superstar right now is the All Blacks, and unfortunately a team being a star just isn't as cool as a person being a star. As a team winning can get old, but a person winning builds intrigue to their eventual defeat. That's just the way people are, and that's just the way time works. And finally, number 3, to have a compelling game amongst friends socially, you need a few too many people. So I spoke a lot about branding and all that boring stuff, so let's just talk about the grassroots of playing rugby with your mates. And the issue rugby has is that you need too many people. So I'm a big fan of touch rugby and Fiji touch, but to have a decent game, minimum, you need 6 people, 3 on each team. And for most of the other sports in the top 10, it's just easier to play a social game with minimal organising. But I think all of these problems that rugby has are in fact fixable. So let's move on to the things that rugby has going for it. First off, it's a sport with a moral code. So I've already spoken about the values of rugby on this channel a couple times, but for those uninitiated in the way I think, I believe the rules and values that rugby usually upholds are some of the strongest in the world. Its value on insistence on respecting the officials as much as possible being the most talked about and probably the most appealing to parents trying to get their children to be active, especially with the other rival team sports like football having such an issue with it. But something that is a massive selling point of the game, and is something that I genuinely just somehow forgot about, was the clubhouse community and hosting side of rugby. And what I mean by that is the fact that when you play a home game of rugby, you are expected to host and feed the opposition. That is the bare minimum expected of a club in rugby, which is probably why I forgot about it, because it's just what teams and clubs do. It's just part of it, and that's awesome. And you forget when you step outside of rugby that it's not really a thing anywhere else. After a game, you just sort of leave with other sports. And thinking about that situation now, I just think that's not right. But that's the standard of hospitality expected, and that's what keeps people around and wanting to come back. In addition to that, you have all the social sides of the game as well, like clubhouse bars, the socials with your teammates, and the away trips on coaches. There is a lot to get into around rugby, and it's a massive part of the game that should be championed and appreciated. Now, the second thing that rugby has going for it is it's a sport for everyone. Rugby having lots of players on the pitch may be a negative in terms of the creation of superstars, but the advantage of that is there are lots of different positions with lots of different skill sets required, and that makes it a very inclusive sport, not excluding the bigger boned gents, but actively encouraging them. Rugby players can come in all shapes and sizes, and something that I don't think gets talked about enough is the many variations of rugby that people can play. I understand that not everyone is built for contact sports, but touch rugby is a massive thing all around the world, as well as tag rugby, where you can have men's games, women's games, and because it's non-contact, unisex games as well. And when contact is taken out of the game, skill and subtlety becomes the focus, and the games are extremely fun to play, and yet again, in the great rugby tradition, a great way to make connections with people. Furthermore, I haven't even mentioned sevens yet, which is continuing to grow at a rapid rate, and its inclusion in the Olympics has added to the profile of the sport and is a massive opportunity for lower tier nations to take the world stage and make a splash. And third and final thing that rugby has going for it is a growing sport and a growing game. We get to shape the way it grows and what values it champions. Other sports are stuck in their ways and almost boxed in by the fact that everyone knows them for certain things, which is a massive advantage for rugby, with the game only recently becoming professional. There is room for us to create our own status quo, and one of the main ways we've already begun to do that is, ironically, rugby's relationship with the platform I'm using right now. YouTube. YouTube is by no means perfect, but what it is good for is providing a platform where people can come from all over the world and watch the same thing at whatever time and tempo they wish to do, with options to live streams and interact with people. Now, where rugby comes into that is because rugby is still growing, TV rights haven't completely swallowed up the rights for match footage, meaning highlight videos of games are actively encouraged to help promote the game and keep people interested in the on-field product. Now compare and contrast that with a sport like football, where English Premier League highlights are on TV or you missed it, or you have to find some obscure video that whatever TV rights company hasn't found and given many swift copyright strikes to. Whereas in the English Premiership, Super Rugby, the Pro 14, the French League, they all have their own highlights channels on YouTube that want you to watch their content. And that's my point. Our sports need to grow gives us accessibility that other sports couldn't dream of. And to push my point over the edge, the first ever professional rugby league in America, the MLR, has full matches on their channel for free, along with highlight videos, top 5 tries of the week, all this stuff for you to consume for free. Free, full-length professional sport there for us fans to consume. That's what I mean by us creating our own culture, community and rules. And it's not just the big companies. Rugby YouTube personalities are slowly growing and on the rise. People providing personalities, analysis and entertainment around the sport we all love. With us all being able to witness the sport's growth and these people, companies and channels growing before our very eyes, and also being able to choose what we value simply by choosing what we watch. And I'm extremely excited for the future of our game and where it goes from here. And so we know what has held our sport back in the past, but we now know what will push us forward. The interweb. Signed NGJ.